Welcome to our inaugural IPRS Purpose series. I'm Marcus Lowe, coming to you from my home, just as where most of you are joining me from. Since the circuit breaker early this year, I've invited selected industry practitioners to join me in peer-to-peer conversations. They are business leaders, PR heads, agency chiefs, all managing their organizations in this new normal. We launched this IPRS Purpose series to help our members understand the broader landscape of stakeholders that their organizations serve, to learn more about these institutions that can partner with you to enable your firms to not just deliver on financial or economic value, but in doing so to create social capital as well. And through this series, we aim to enable the organizations you represent to accumulate reputation capital not by what we say, but how we behave. And in public relations, we know that it is never just about what we articulate, but how we act that truly matters in reputation building. This Friday, we are joined by a wonderful panel of professionals who are meaningfully making Singapore a better place through the work that they do each day. And in just a moment, I will invite our panelists to give a quick introduction of themselves and the organizations they represent. First, we have Cheong Su Fen, the CEO and founder of Preschool Market. Preschool Market is a consultancy company and a social enterprise. And Su Fen, welcome to the program. And if you'd like to say a few words about yourself and Preschool Market, please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Su Fen, founder of Preschool Market. So thanks for having me here. Maybe I'll share a little bit about myself. Yeah, I started my career in Procter & Gamble when I first graduated in NUS. Then after that, I joined the education ministry in the preschool education branch to actually help the team in the uplifting of the quality of preschool education for the kindergartens back then. And also to share, I was actually part of the team to set up the first 5 MOE kindergartens in Singapore. So during my stint in the education ministry, I was actually very heartened and amazed with the love and passion our preschool educators have for our young children and how they devote themselves to nurture our little ones. I also come across a lot of needs on the ground, much as the government is doing their best to support, but this actually requires effort from all walks of life. Yeah, so at the same time as I'm reading and learning from other countries, I was thinking what I could do to create value for the sector and do good for the community. So with this in mind, I actually step up and set up this social enterprise Preschool Market, which is, as Marcus mentioned, a preschool consultancy company, and we commit a large portion of our revenue to support children and families from the underprivileged with our programs and resources. And also throughout this journey, I also take this opportunity to also thank many of our partners and people who actually believe and supported us. I'm happy to be part of this panel today, and thank you for having me.
Thanks, Su Fen. Next, we have Sarah Rodriguez, the head of marketing at Edible Garden City. Edible Garden City is one of Singapore's most prominent social change maker, if I can phrase it that way, and to bring about social change through urban farming and community-centric agriculture. Sarah, over to you, please.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. So maybe I can start with an introduction on Edible Garden City. So we're an agricultural social enterprise, and we encourage Singaporeans to grow their own food and to support local farmers. And we actually hire inclusively. So we have everyone from retirees to colleagues from marginalized communities working with us. And so we do education courses on gardening. We supply fresh vegetables to households, and we also do edible landscaping. A little bit about myself, much like Su Fen, I also started out, I worked in the government previously. So I was there about 4.5 years, and then something rose within me. I had this inkling that I wanted to become a farmer. So I went to Japan to farm for about a month, and I really fell in love with it. Just being on the ground every day, getting my hands dirty, it was I found my calling. And so I decided to come back to Singapore and to try and explore something similar locally. That's how I found Edible Garden City, and the rest is history. So I'm really thankful to be here to share with you guys, and also looking forward to learning from the panel as well as the participants here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And finally, we have Ken Hickson, the founder, chairman, and CEO of Sustainability. He's a practitioner who wears many hats. He's an editor, a lecturer, a communicator, and the author of 6 books. Ken had also served as the IPRS President from 1994 to 1996. Welcome, Ken. Over to you.
Thanks very much, Marcus. Thank you. Yes, well, and I won't take up too much time because obviously I've got a bit of history, but at the same time, I suppose I want to mention that I've had my feet in both camps, from the media side as well as the public relations communication side. So while sustainability is a strong involvement of mine currently, I still get asked to do PR for some clients and some projects. And in the past, I've also worked in radio, television, magazines, newspapers. So I have a experience on the media side as well as on the communication side. And I should say, again, to try and be brief, I first came to Singapore from New Zealand in 1983. And I know perhaps many of you weren't even born in 1983. So I'm one of the pioneers, I suppose. So I worked for Singapore Airlines initially as a consultant and then set up my own PR company in Singapore. Did work for the Tourist Board. While I haven't worked for the government as an employee, I've certainly had government clients over the years. And currently I have 2 fairly major international NGOs, non-government organizations that I'm doing work for, and both of them are in the purpose business. One is the Program for the Endorsement of Forest Certification, there to protect and manage forests around the world. And the other is the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, again, a recently set up organization in Singapore, and they've asked me to help them with content and some media advice as well. So that's give you some idea, I suppose, of the breadth of my experience, but also that I'm still involved. And next month, September, I'll celebrate 10 years of setting up Sustainability Showcase Asia here in Singapore.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ken. So thanks, Su Fen, thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Ken, for your introduction. I think I can speak on behalf of the community. We're really looking forward to hearing your insights about purpose and purpose's role in Singapore. So let me start off with the first question. In recent years, we have seen the forging of a general public consensus that expects businesses to do more than create financial and economic value in society. Businesses today are expected to create social value as well. What would you say are the reasons behind these shifting expectations of the role of business today? This is open to everyone, but maybe we'll start with Ken. Ken?
And I suppose this happened some years ago, particularly from an environmental standpoint, which is a big issue and a big problem for many companies as well as society at large. And I saw this even going back to my early days in PR in Singapore, that companies were wanting to show then that they were green or that they were doing something that was good for the community. And it could have been everything from cleaning up beaches to planting trees to being part of the Singapore process, as well as being involved in global issues. And very early on, one of my clients was BMW. And we were quick to show, and they wanted to show, how they, as a global car maker, were committed to environmental practices. But even introducing very early on, this is going back to the 90s, 1990s, introducing recycling. So what the materials that are used in making a car, even then, could be recycled, or they were actually assembling a car from largely recycled parts. They're also committed to traffic management. They're also committed to switching to electric vehicles. So very early on, this is going back, 20, 30 years ago, companies were realizing that they had to be seen to be doing more for the community and for the environment.
Thanks, Ken. All right. So those are considerations on the role that companies should be playing to be a lot more environmentally responsible. Another theme that seems to be also gaining traction, especially in Singapore, is the area of food security. Edible Garden City is a big player in that sector. And recently, we have seen partnerships with organizations like Temasek Holdings and Bayer coming into the sector to also play a role in securing food supplies for Singapore. Maybe Sarah, you can share a little bit of details from your observations of that sector, and the reason, some of the reasons why more organizations are dipping their toes into a sector like you're operating in.
I think it's really something that Singapore has to do to become more sovereign, to become more independent. Take for instance our water problem, right? So back in the day, we had a water problem where we developed the 4 taps. So we buy water from Malaysia, we have new water, we have the reservoirs, we do desalination. So we have 4 solutions to one water problem. And I think it's good that we are finally, as a whole industry, government, all coming together to find a solution to our food problem. Because currently we actually import about 90% of our food. With something like this COVID pandemic, we've realized that very, very quickly the borders can close. For instance, for us, we've had some issues getting seeds come in for us to grow plants. And so it's really important that we beef up our local food supply. And I think it's good that many companies are getting on board, and this will really strengthen us not only as industry, but as a whole nation.
Okay, so it's really making a virtue of necessity. Just as what we did with our water story, we hope to do the same for our food story. And Su Fen, in the area of early childhood education and preschool, that used to be the remit either of very niche private players or huge public sector networks. Why are more businesses or even social enterprises looking to enter the space to play a part in cultivating the next generation?
Because as you mentioned, really cultivating the next generation. Yeah, and I think we really need to build a strong foundation in our young children, cultivating the nurturing them so that we can actually give them the best to actually provide them the good start in their lives. Yeah, so right now you can see actually in our sector, all preschools are actually privately run, except for MOE kindergartens. Yeah, so it is really not really profitable, but I think we really have a lot of passionate educators, principals that we want to actually help to set up these preschools to actually give the children the best knowledge that they could provide for.
Okay, well, it's well and good that we want businesses to give back and play this role in society. But so the larger question is, I think, is can organizations realistically create both social and economic value in equal measure? And what are some of the business models that have worked in all 3 of your perspectives, have worked in a sustainable way?
If I can jump in, certainly we've seen in the last 10 years, maybe 15 years, a lot of the rise, I suppose, of ground up activity from startups that might be operating in the area of energy, food security, dealing with food waste. We've also seen social enterprises really come into their own, which have really, in some ways, provided a good example for business. Because sometimes it's the big business that maybe, if I may say, cause more of the problems, particularly, say, in the fossil fuel industry, energy industry. But some of the startups that are started by individuals or groups of relatively young people. There are a few older people who get involved with startups as well. But those startups or the social enterprises usually have a purpose, which is to do some good. I've also been involved as a judge for the Brands for Good awards over the last couple of years. And there are examples too of many small companies, SMEs, that get involved in doing good in the community. So I suppose that sometimes it's big companies, like international companies like Unilever, that have been seen to be doing good work. At the same time, there's a lot of startups and a lot of opportunity for social enterprises, from the ground up, enterprises that are doing some good. So it's not a matter of saying you can only afford to do good when you're a big company. you can start with a very good purpose.
Okay, but so to Sarah and Su Fen, both of you represent social enterprises that seek to do both well and good at the same time. Has this model of social enterprise really worked out in making businesses sustainable and trying to achieve both objectives at the same time?
So I think for us at EGC, it actually is something that is advantageous for us. So for instance, with our inclusive hiring practices, it actually helps us. So for instance, we hire retirees, and a lot of these retirees actually have this wealth of knowledge on farming and gardening because they've done it in the kampongs when they were younger. And we also hire colleagues who are autistic, and they have laser focus, and they're really good when you give them a task, and once they've learned it, they are super efficient. And so it's really about looking at these strengths and playing to the strengths, and instead of seeing it as a limitation, I think, because there are these pockets of talent that, you know, we just have to find the right fit for. And I think for us in agriculture, it's worked out really well, that we've managed to find these groups that can really help our business.
Okay, Su Fen?
Yeah, to be honest, actually, for myself, I've struggled long and hard on this question. Is it possible to do good and at the same time have a profitable business while adding value to the sector? So it's actually really a challenge and a paradigm to do good and at the same time getting profits. So for us, we actually, over the years, we have tried different models, different business methods to see how to actually really do this aspect of work. So that's where we actually bring in curriculum design, teacher training, student programs, even events management over the years to see like different areas of the whole sector where we can actually add value to.
Okay, so while there are businesses and organizations like yours that aim to do good right from the start, as Ken alluded to earlier, there are also organizations that have realized that they need to do more. And then they want to infuse this sense of good and purpose at the heart of their organization. So it's a bit of a transformation for them. For these leaders, what is your advice about helping them to start making that transformation, to start infusing this sense of purpose in the heart of their business?
And I've certainly seen that in the sustainability sector, where many big companies will say, yes, we're becoming sustainable. Yes, we're committed to being more sustainable as a business. And a book that I put out about 6 years ago was called Race for Sustainability. And I looked at a lot of case studies of companies and organizations, government, private sector as well. But I also identified what I saw as the 4 E's of sustainability. And that was energy, economy, environment, and ethics. And I think ethics is extremely important, and it's extremely important for people in the PR industry and media and business in general. And I think we are inclined to sometimes think that it's the economic sustainability, that we have to maintain this business, we have to make sure we're producing jobs and revenue and profit. And it was John, the man who came up with the 3 Ps, the profit, people, and planet. John, and I've just forgotten his other name, but the triple bottom line. And he pointed that out. But I think we even have to go beyond that to consider the ethical matters of how business operates in society. And they don't just operate for profit making, but they have a purpose to fulfill, which is serving humanity. And I think some companies get that, and some companies have gone beyond just the gradual transition to having sustainability, for example, at the heart of their business. And one is Olam International, which has its headquarters in Singapore. And Sunny Verghese, I've heard him speak, and he's won awards, and an amazing example of a CEO who accepts sustainability at the heart of their business. It's in their DNA. And I think there's some other companies in Singapore and globally who do believe strongly. And, you know, sustainability isn't just about the environment or about the economy. It's about how you operate that is of benefit to everyone. and includes diversity. It includes looking after people. So I think it's important to look where companies can ingrain some of these strong principles of ethics, of sustainability, of people.
Okay, thanks, Ken. I mean, I want to go just now to Sarah, because Sarah, you head marketing at the Edible Garden City. If marketeers want to start marketing or communicating about their organizations, but to do so in a more purposeful way, where do you advise that they start? How would you advise that they start doing so?
I think the best way is just to be your most genuine self, because customers are discerning. They can tell when you are greenwashing, when you're not sincere. And so it's really important to pick a cause that you believe in, that you can follow through with. And if you meet failure, be honest about it and be open to sharing about it, because there's no perfect solution. And I think customers will connect with your successes as well as your failures. And so definitely, just be humble and be genuine, in your marketing.
Right. You can't fake it. You should radiate it from the heart, right? Radiate purpose from the heart. And Su Fen, so you are a business executive. If there was an executive, a peer of yours coming to you and say that, hey, I'm not a social enterprise, I'm profit driven, but I want to infuse purpose in what I do. I want to try to benefit a broader stakeholder group, right? What would your advice be to help this person start on that journey for his organization or her organization?
I would think I foresee in the future, I guess all companies will actually have to have a sense of purpose to give back to the community and to really adopt this CSR back into the company, because I think the society is moving towards this doing good and giving back, this movement. Yeah.
Okay. We're taking questions from the floor. We've got the first one. I'd like to pose this to the three of you. The questioner says, I work for a very successful business. What is the incentive to do good? I've tried convincing my boss with no luck. So I think along the same thread, for businesses who want to do good, you've shared your advice to those executives. What about for businesses who maybe don't see an immediate need to infuse purpose in their operations or purpose in what they do? What would you say to this executive to convince his or her boss to try to do good in society while running a successful business?
Okay, if I could look at it purely from this perspective of the sustainability element and the environmental factors involved, I mean, it's in a company's interest to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, to reduce their energy use, to manage their waste, to manage their water use, to manage chemicals or reduce the use of chemicals in their business. So that's in their interest because society is demanding that companies don't continue to operate where they're damaging the environment. So I think from an environmental standpoint alone, companies can be convinced that it's in their interest not only to serve the community, but in the case of, for example, energy efficiency, they can actually save themselves money and make money. And this is one of the principles of sustainability and sustainability reporting. If you're doing your reporting right, if you're acting as a company in the right way, you're addressing the risks in the right way, you're also reducing your costs and potentially even making more money if you're doing it right. So I think there is that financial, economic benefit for a company that does get on board. And also, to be quite honest, there's a way of winning more business if they are showing themselves to be committed to society, committed to the community, committed to the planet. There's an opportunity for them to get more business.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Su Fen, any thoughts from your end?
Yeah, I guess I would tell the boss, in order to retain talents like myself, yeah, so I guess every worker will want to actually, especially, employees will want to have a sense of purpose. Yeah, I forgot the word. Yeah, a sense of purpose in everything that they are doing. So it's not just about getting business and earning profits. It's really what they are in for and so it should be a message back to the boss. Yeah.
Especially if the company regards their employees as their greatest asset, right? Which is what most companies would say.
Yeah.
And Sarah, what are your thoughts on that? How would you convince your boss, assuming you were working for a company that didn't really believe in doing good?
Yeah, I think much like what Su Fen has said, when you have your staff aligned in your purpose, it's really amazing. Just working at EGC, if you guys come, you will meet so many young people who are so passionate about the cause, and it's like exuding out of their pores, and it's really inspiring, not only to your customers but to other businesses. And so long-term wise, financially, I believe it will pay off as well, because you will get, as Ken has also mentioned, a lot more opportunity, maybe different types of opportunities. And so, there may be some change that's needed in the short run, but long-term wise, definitely it will be a change for good.
Okay. So amid this whole situation of COVID-19, different companies are responding to the crisis in different ways. Would you say that by being a social enterprise or an organization that tries to do good and do well at the same time, you've been able to respond to these challenges in a more favorable way as compared to companies who are mainly focused on profit maximization? I love to hear a point of view from the education sector, the agricultural sector, or even a convening body like the body that Ken is working with.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see just over the last 6 months, and I suppose the work that I've been asked to do is interesting because the companies that have approached me or the organizations that have approached me to help them have all survived, and I'd like to think even flourished, I think, through this difficult period, because they are committed to doing some good. So, for example, the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, they started in Singapore 18 months ago, but most of their staff have only come on board in the last 6 months in Singapore, where they have their global headquarters. But they've been able to continue to start projects in this period of time over the last 6 months. They've identified and worked with UN agencies, they're working with USAID, they're working with community groups throughout Asia as well as Africa. And they've been able to do things in Singapore as well during this time by working with media, working with community groups, working with government. So it hasn't actually stopped them from doing what their main purpose in life is, to draw attention to the problem as well as show or come up with solutions. So I think those companies that are committed to doing good can ride through this particular phase. The only other one I'd like to mention, and we haven't covered it up to now, is the whole seniors aging situation that we have in Singapore, and many countries have. I've had the opportunity in the last 6 months, or the last 12 months actually, to work with the Lions Home for the Elders, a charity set up to provide long-term care for seniors. And I'm probably a candidate to go there myself at some stage, sooner than anyone else. But I've helped them do their 40th anniversary book, which is due out any time. And the aged care sector, the care sector generally, has been very badly hit globally. But in Singapore, we've found that because these companies, these charities, these organizations in the healthcare sector are very well managed and very well supported by the government as well as the private sector. We've seen examples even in the last 12 months where some major companies have offered to help the Lions Home for Elders as well as others in the healthcare, senior care sector. So that's another sector that is very important, but it's also important for companies to show that they care or can contribute in some way.
Okay. And Su Fen, so how has Preschool Market responded to the challenges that COVID has just posed us?
Yes, we actually experienced a 90% drop in revenue as we were really unable to do programs in the schools. But thankfully, as we provide consultancy services, we were able to pivot our business to working online, remotely, like research work, curriculum development for the preschools. And thankfully, my team was able to adapt to the new norm of conducting lessons online. Yeah, so during this period, actually, many times I actually really wanted to just give up. Yeah, but when I actually come to realize that the work that we are doing does make a difference to the underprivileged children and families, so I decided to, soldier it on and persevere it with the team, because I think at the end of the day, when I started this social enterprise was not to really get profits, but was really to create impact.
Well, that's fantastic. That's really meaningful. And we can really see how driven by passion and not just commercial gains alone, you've been able to soldier on and tide through this very challenging period for all of us. But I've got a follow-up question to that, Su Fen. By being a social enterprise, does that in any way position preschool in a more favorable manner in going through a crisis like this? Have people looked upon preschool market in a more favorable way as compared to just the commercial maximization sort of preschool businesses?
I can't say for the commercial companies, but for ourselves, because as we work with partners and agencies, so if they really require, during the COVID season, they require help from us, we will actually support with actually not so high fees, because I think during this period we actually help each other. So it is actually a mutual understanding among the partners lah. And I actually treasure the collaboration with every partner that we have during this crisis, because we also supported some charity with books for children, because we also do understand that the children are stuck at home and they do need help in one way or another.
So that's interesting, because what you're saying is essentially by being a social enterprise, you can actually take a longer term and more relationship focused point of view in working with your partners and other institutions, and that I think can be an advantage in your sector. And Sarah, back to you. Has being a social enterprise does Edible Garden City enjoy some advantages in steering COVID-19?
I definitely think so. Of course, like every other industry, we've been impacted by the pandemic. We are in a way fortunate because through this, a lot of people have actually expressed more appreciation for farmers, and so that's kind of the silver lining. But being a social enterprise, I think success is defined very differently in a social enterprise as in a regular commercial enterprise. So it's not only keeping your eye on the bottom line, but also looking at social impact as a success indicator. And I think because of that, it helps social enterprises be a little bit more quick on their feet, a little bit more adaptable, because at the end of the day, if it benefits the community, it is a success and it's something worth going into. So I think that really helps us be more adaptable in situations like this.
Okay, thank you. So for those of you who've just joined us, this is IPRS PR Purpose series. We are delighted to be hosting our first ever series of this format, covering the theme of helping organizations becoming more purpose-driven. On our program today, we are delighted to welcome Cheong Su Fen of Preschool Market, Sarah Rodriguez of Edible Garden City, and Ken Hickson of Sustainability Showcase Asia to discuss how organizations can be good and do well at the same time. Please post your questions for our panelists on our group chat, and we'll try to cover as many of them in this session as possible. So to the three of you, there was a global study that was just concluded, and my firm actually commissioned that study. It showed that 64% of people believe that brands can do more to drive social change. 84% of people believe that customers will demand that brands have a positive impact on society. So in that milieu, more organizations will be thrust into the center of public attention in this new normal. How do you think brands can partner with organizations like yours to arrive at a greater positive impact on society? Maybe we'll start with Sarah from Edible Garden City.
Yeah, I think the first thing to look at when partnering with other brands is where do you align in terms of your social causes, type of impact that you want to make. Because on a very practical basis, it has to fit into the vision, mission, bottom line of your company. You gotta, I guess, pick the enterprises you want to work with based on that, and then that way it will be the most viable in the long run. So thinking not only during the COVID period, but how can you use this opportunity to enhance the business and the partnership beyond a situation like this as well.
And on that note, right, Sarah, if I can press on that question, what would the factors be when Edible Garden City looks for a business partner or a marketing partner, to advance your social mission?
For us, for instance, we love working with partners who can reach out to these groups that we with our marketing we find is a little bit lacking. So, for instance, for Edible Garden City, we tend to appeal to more of the younger crowd. But we also really want to share this love of growing and all that with the like Gen Z as well as older folk. And so we love to work with companies that align with this knowledge sharing, but to also help us to dip our toes into these other segments that, in terms of the pattern of our outreach, doesn't quite match. And I think the most important thing is that we have this common goal, whether it's education or sustainability. So that's mainly what we look for, that alignment.
Okay, education and sustainability. All right. And Su Fen, on potential corporate partnerships that you could foster, if people are interested to support Preschool Market, what would be a partnership model, or who are the types of partners that you'd invite?
I think, as Sarah mentioned, alignment of social causes is very important to us, particularly. Yeah, so for us, the priority stakeholders are definitely the children and the families. Yeah, so we try to write on their core competencies of these brands, these companies. So for example, catering company. So we can actually see how we can work together with them to provide food for the underprivileged families. Or another example is book publishers, to see how we can actually work together to distribute books, storybooks to the children, or even come up with a story for together with the children as they draw. Yeah. So these are just some examples.
Okay. Thanks, Su Fen. And Ken, perspective from your end, please.
Yeah, I think, and I've given a few examples of companies that I'm aware of, like Olam and BMW. I think it's important that a company tries to identify with projects, with community causes, with charities, with issues that are very relative to their particular industry. So BMW being involved with recycling, waste management, energy efficiency, renewable energy makes sense. But they also do things on traffic management to make sure cities aren't congested. So they do some work in a lot of related areas. Another one that I've done work for recently, which is important, is DNVGL, a Danish international company that gets involved in certification, developing standards, improving performance of products and businesses. And they're very committed to encourage greater investment in renewable energy in Asia, for example. So I helped them produce a report recently that pointed out the advantages of investing in renewable energy and the return you get, but also the fact that you are able to contribute to reducing emissions of greenhouse gases. So finding the right alignment, finding the right opportunities. But there are some, obviously, where a company can be seen to be doing good by investing in senior care or investing in healthcare or education. So there are other compatible interests that they can have by doing good in different sectors. But I think it's good if you can align it with your company's objectives as well.
Okay. And on that note of reporting and how companies are actually benefiting from actually doing good through a risk management standpoint, I have a question about measuring outcome, measuring impact. It's doing good is great. Sometimes the returns are quite takes a while to be realized. What are your three of your recommendations of how should organizations hold themselves accountable when they try to do good and do well at the same time? What are some of the common methods in which people measure their impact on the stakeholders that they aspire to serve?
Well, if I can jump in, and I mentioned before that I've been involved with judging Brands for Good awards in Singapore, but I've also been involved in judging sustainability reporting awards in Singapore and regionally. And in those awards, it's not just a matter of winning the awards, because sometimes awards are a little bit easier to win than others. But what's important is to show, and as a judge, I was very concerned with not only what a company was reporting on sustainability or their work in the community, but what they were actually doing. And because there was one particular case, and I won't name the company concerned, but they were in for a sustainability reporting award, but they were still investing in coal-fired energy projects in the region. And to me, that was contrary to the principles of sustainability. It wasn't necessarily something, and they didn't report on what they were doing, but there was a factor in how they can be judged for their commitment to sustainability. So it's very important that if a company is wanting to be seen to be doing good, they're able to show that. And I go back to the OLAM example, where they were able to show that they had certifications and standards in so many different sectors of production, of distribution, of supply chain. So they were able to demonstrate that they were committed to certain high principles, high standards. And that's something that a company can do, and it's a very good way of doing it. And I found this again through my work with PEFC, the Program for the Endorsement of Forest Certification. If a company has that certificate, if it has that stamp of approval, that's also a sign that they're committed to sustainability and forest management, or a sustainable supply chain, or responsible sourcing. So these are all ways that they can have measurable standards and measurable tools to show that they are committed in what they're doing. And this, in many ways, can be to their advantage. They can win more business if they show that they're committed to those standards.
Okay, thanks, Ken. And from a sustainability angle, there are benchmarks and standards and best practices that organizations that can try to aspire to. The social aspect of doing good and the impact of that don't seem to be as straightforward as the sustainability part. I'd like to invite Su Fen and Sarah to weigh in. What would you guys recommend for organizations to measure their social impact on their stakeholders for your respective sectors?
So maybe I'll go first.
Sure.
It's not easy. It's not always easy to measure such help and to actually measure the effectiveness of how actually on the help that we have given to the underprivileged families and the children. Yeah, it's actually not measurable by the amount of time or money that was given to them. Yeah, so that's why we actually narrow the support. So we actually work with several charities to actually cement through together with the group of children under their care through this education journey to see through how they actually progress over the years. To be honest, I'm also learning how to actually do this part better.
Understand, because when you want to measure outcomes, it's usually longitudinal, right? It's not. Yeah. Okay, I understand. Sarah, how about Edible Garden City?
For us, I think we are really fortunate to work with the Autism Resource Center. So they have job coaches who are on site every day, and they are in contact with our colleagues and their families for the long period of time. And so we are able to work with them to identify things like behavioral changes, the way like confidence boosts and things like that, which are difficult to measure otherwise. And so I think a good way would be to work with organizations who have these touch points that can collate a holistic kind of anecdotal stories. And then that way we can also find different ways of measuring the impact rather than using dollars and cents.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. I'm looking at the clock. It's 5:45. I know I booked your timing for about 45 minutes, but we received some questions, not through this chat, but through other sources. I'm wondering if the three of you might be able to just avail yourselves for about maybe 5 minutes. If you don't mind, we can extend this a little bit more. Is that okay with you?
Fine, that's good.
Yeah? Okay. Great. So one of the questions is probably from a student who says that he will be graduating with a communication degree soon. He was considering a role in public relations or a career in public relations, but the current job market seems to be quite bleak. What advice would you give someone like him who would like to aspire a career in communications for a social enterprise? Anyone wants to go?
Well, I suppose I do get called on to both mentor and train people, and over the years I have, I suppose, but not only employed, but worked with and trained and mentored many young people. And I certainly encourage them. I mean, what is interesting in this through this whole coronavirus lockdown process, the communications industry, media, while they might have suffered some revenue downturn in terms of lack of advertising, media has played an incredibly valuable role. And likewise, communications people are very important through this process. So there's been a very necessary role that communications, public relations, media people can play. And I would say to any students who are looking to work in public relations or work in the media, how important it is to hone, if you like, their communication skills, because that's so important. I mean, I had, I suppose, an advantage in that I've worked in radio and television and newspapers, so I've been trained as a journalist, trained as a reporter. But it's very important for people in public relations work, communications industry, to not only understand how the media works, but also be good writers, be good communicators. And I think that's something that I just detect that a lot of PR people that I come across don't perhaps have the communication skills that I would be expecting them to have. So refine those skills, do a bit of extra work, do some writing, do some communicating, have some training that gives you those additional skills that will put you in a very good position.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Sarah, any tips on your end?
So actually, I'm also a communications graduate. And what I find that's really good about having this skill is that it's so translatable to every industry. So my advice to someone, looking to get into the workforce is follow your heart. I know it sounds super cliche, but find industry, find something that you're really passionate about, because this skill that you have, the communication skill, it's adaptable to every type of work. And so you will find so much more joy using it in a context that you love. So don't sell out, follow your heart.
Good advice. Thanks, Sarah. And Su Fen, over to you.
Yes, okay. I think social enterprises are really not fully understood at this point. Sometimes I feel, but I strongly believe it will be the way forward. So I would really want to encourage the student that if you really want to do good in this industry, really carry the passion, and it's not going to be easy, because I guess the skills that you have, communication skills, is really needed everywhere. If you actually able to convey the best message that you could for the company, I guess the social enterprise will actually thrive.
Fantastic. One common theme that seems to resonate across our overall discussion today is the idea that we might not be able to do everything alone. Partnerships matter. It's better to cooperate than simply compete. And on that note, I'd like to ask for your views on something, which is IPRS, the Institute of Public Relations of Singapore, has always been the industry's convening body, bringing practitioners together, bringing community together. Amid this whole situation of people staying apart, being physically apart, right? We can't have physical events as much as we like to. What is the role and relevance of a body like IPRS today from your point of view?
I think very relevant. I know in my past experience as a consultant, getting involved with IPRS, there weren't many other consultancies. The big consultancies in town might have sort of given it a bit of lip service. But when the Prism Award started, then the consultancies were saying, well, hang on a minute, we should be able to win an award if we go after this and go after that. So having those awards in place were actually a way of encouraging more to get more involved in the industry and in the institute. So I think we need to look at ways that the industry can not only work with others, and there's every reason why IPRS should be doing more work with the press clubs of Singapore or the Foreign Correspondents Association, where you're doing collaborative things with other groups. And likewise, some of the chambers of commerce in Singapore, foreign and local, do some amazingly good work. And there are ways that you can collaborate and work with them. So I think that approach for collaboration and partnerships is essential. And this is where we still have to be a little bit careful, I think, on the ethical side. We have to make sure that we are not overstepping the mark in terms of being too close to an industry or being close to an organization that might be thinking in different terms than us. But I think the opportunity for collaboration and partnerships is as strong now as ever.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Su Fen?
Yeah, it's really a good platform, and I think it really gives practitioners to learn and share from one another, and also allows the next generation to learn and grow, imparting experience, skills, and values to them. Yeah, so as Ken mentioned, yeah, it's also a platform for collaboration. Yeah, so yes, it is really much needed.
Okay, thank you. And Sarah?
Yeah, definitely. It's really grateful for a platform like this because, it's a great way to learn from everyone, see what everyone's doing, learning best practices and all. Particularly for me, I'm in quite a small team. And so being able to have this connection to other practitioners really helps to, give me more ideas to forge new partnerships and things like that, So I'm really, really grateful for IPRS.
Okay, wonderful. We hope that through a program and a series like this, we'll be able to interest more organizations in communication or even the clients that we serve to step forward, to want to partner so that together we are greater. And I think that's a great way to bring our conversation to a close. On that note, Su Fen, Sarah, and Ken, I'd like to thank you very much for speaking with me. I'm sure that the community will continue to be enriched by the contributions of thought leaders like yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.